Okay, here is my chemistry concept map. I'm going to start out here with chemistry. There's two different kinds of chemistry, inorganic and organic. Inorganic, for an example, there's an inorganic compound called aldehyde. For organic examples, there's lipids. And all the way down here, we have other organic compounds that are good examples, alcohol and carboxylic acid. Oh my. There's different types of lipids. There's phospholipids and glycolipids. And if you combine glycerol with the phospholipid, following this little line, it takes you all the way to hydroxyl. Those are two different types of groups that make up a glycerol. So going back up to chemistry, they're not just prefixes, but other measurements used in chemistry include grams, liters, meters, milli, centi, kilo, and micro. Now chemistry is the study of atoms. Going to one of the most important parts of this video. Atoms make up proteins, and a type of protein would be a glycoprotein. They make up fatty acids, and a couple of examples of those would be saturated fat and unsaturated fat. Now atoms also make up elements. Here's some of the important elements. Some of the primary ones include hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon. A carbonyl group includes ketone. A secondary element that's really important in life is sulfur, and an important group of that is sulfhydryl, which is a combination of sulfur and hydrogen. Some other important elements are potassium, calcium, chloride, sodium, and phosphorus. If you take hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon, those can make sugars. Some examples of sugars are monosaccharides, polysaccharides, and carbohydrates. Now, sugars are linked to the nucleosides, which are linked to the nucleotides, and a couple of those linked together would make nucleic acids. Now, I do have another line going from atoms to elements. So, elements would have been a lot bigger, but it was different on my rough drafts. Anyway, unstable elements would be called radioactive isotopes, and those have a half-life. If you have two or more elements put together, those would be called isomers. Elements can have hydrophobic interactions. An example of that would be the group methyl. Elements have atomic weights and atomic numbers, and those are found by the protons and the combination of the protons and neutrons to find the mass of the atom. Now elements can be combined or bound together by cohesion or adhesion through different types of bonds. And these different bonds include nonpolar covalent, double covalent. An example of that would be the carbonyl group. Polar covalent, an example of that is a hydrogen bond. Ionic bond, which I believe, if I remember correctly, it is between a metal and a nonmetal. A triple covalent bond. Now aldehyde is between carbonyl and this line, hydrogen, because that carbonyl and hydrogen make aldehyde. Now valence electrons are the ones that are most involved in making the bonds. Atoms share valence electrons in order to be bound. Atoms are made up of electrons, neutrons, and protons. And electrons have electron shells, which they have different energy levels. Electrons exchanged result in oxidation and reduction reactions, and in each of those reactions you'll have an electron donor and an electron acceptor. The electron acceptor tends to be the ones that are closer to 8, and the electron donors tend to be closer to, well, they have 4 or less valence electrons. Protons are often represented by hydrogen, The measurement of hydrogen is, well, to measure the amount of hydrogen in something, you find its pH. If it has a high pH, it's a base. If it has a low pH, it's an acid. An example of each of these is amino. The amino group is a base, and the carboxyl group is an example of a weak acid group. Protons and neutrons make up the nucleus of an atom. Hydrogen bonds with oxygen in order to make water. And it also, hydroxyl is a group that is made between hydrogen and water. Now, type of water would be an water isotope, which is not quite like water because it has a couple differences. In the protonation of water, hydronium ions are formed, and the hydrogen bond network of water is linked to water. If we follow hydroxyl, it goes back to glycerol. Now, some characteristics in atoms would include molecular weight, which is measured in Daltons, or AMU, which is most commonly heard around people I know. Another characteristic is electronegativity. That determines the type of ion it is, whether it's a cation or an anion. And a type of ion it would be salt, and a type of salt would be phosphate. Now, atoms are measured in moles, and that would, if you were to find how many, hold on. To find the molarity, you would find the number of moles divided by the volume, and the number of moles is found with Avogadro's number, which is 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd power. I believe that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching.